Tom, are you okay?
I lost her.
Her?
She was going to be this epic, trilogy-worthy character. I was going to be the hottest writer in Hollywood. But I can't get past Act 1!
You need some writers group therapy. Hello and welcome to Writers Group Therapy.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Roshni. We're writers helping writers. Are you ready for your session? The doctors are in. And if you like what you hear, make sure you subscribe, share it with your friends, give us a 5-star rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find us online at writersgrouptherapy.com, also on Twitter and Instagram at WGTherapy. Individually,
I'm Tom_Loveman on Twitter and Tom Loveman on Instagram.
And I am at Moonlily Music on Instagram and at Roshni Lamino on Twitter. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Libby Ward. She is a writer, a kids' book author, a magician, an illustrator. And I'm sure there's many more because you wear a bazillion hats, it seems. Libby, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're so glad you're here.
Can you do it? Can you do a magic trick? Wait, it's an audio podcast. Never mind.
A vocal magic
trick makes it much less impressive.
And all under the banner of Sneaky Varmint. So let's start with that. How did that come about?
If you want to find me anywhere on the internet, at Sneaky Varmint, we'll find all kinds of things. Basically, I have a real affinity for the Muppets. I'm a big Muppet fan. They're sort of my Henson and his incredible team is my original inspiration for being in entertainment and doing silly things, and for all of the hyphenates you mentioned, really. And in many of the Muppet movies, there are a lot of random weasels, critters, monsters, etc. And most of them do the little, it's sad because I can't show you, but imagine my hand is a little puppet hand and it's like running, and then it goes and then hiding. And I don't think Henson ever specifically named it that, but I always think of those as sneaky varmints. And so many years ago, I adopted that handle.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And you have always been working with children's projects. You've worked for Cartoon Network. You have your book. Has children's projects always been something you've been attracted to?
You know, I have worked on a lot of children's projects, and frequently it's kind of by accident because family is sort of more where I feel like I land. I really like doing adult stuff, but animation and puppet fun are my favorite media, because especially with animation and, you know, with the book, with illustration, if you are creating something cartoony, then you have the opportunity to give a voice to anyone or anything. So critters, objects, you know, the Luchadoremice get to have their own personalities and tell their story and fulfill their destinies. And so even though it's not children's projects specifically that I'm drawn to the limitlessness of those worlds. And frequently that falls into a family property or family vibe.
Speaking of Luchadoremice, your new book, perfect segue. So tell us a little bit about that, like what was the inspiration? And I understand you also illustrated it. So what was the process like of writing it, illustrating it, all that stuff?
Yeah, so I frequently, thankfully, and I'm sure you guys get this too, go into a meeting to pitch something, and they go, yeah, well, we already have a monster thing, or we already have a space thing, but like, could you pitch us something toyetic? Could you pitch us something, that speaks to your family story? And so I was sort of wandering around town thinking of things, trying to think of things to pitch to these same groups of people who didn't buy what I already had pitched them. And I happened to be actually in front of Iguana Clothing on Hollywood Boulevard. And in the window, they have luchador masks. And I spotted this little mouse. This was in the middle of the night. Everything was closed. This little mouse in the window amongst the luchador masks. And as I mentioned, I sort of feel like everything deserves to fulfill its destiny. So I immediately just presumed that she ended up being Tormenta in the book, that this mouse was a luchadora. and started building a story around her and just started kind of going like snowballing into a lot of fun about these different characters and who they could be and what their masks looked like and that sort of thing. So I started developing it as an animated show, which I would still love to make. And just the theme song kind of poured out of me in Spanglish. My family mostly is from Tucson, but we've lived all up and down the west coast of North America. My dad spent some time in Mazatlan as a kid. And so it kind of just poured out in Spanglish. And the property got optioned, and the option expired. And I went, well, I spent all this time, making these Luchadoremice my family, and I don't want it to just sit on my computer forever. But the theme song was already very Susie in its meter. And so I decided to just write the book and put it out into the world so people can enjoy what I've already built, and maybe it'll continue to expand.
Oh, that's so cool. So this was actually from a pitch.
Yeah, it started as a pitch.
So you illustrated Luchadoremice yourself, right?
I did. In my animation background, I've done a fair amount of art and animating, although it's not my primary thing now. But something else that was important to me in creating it, as God lording over this particular project, and the nice thing about getting lots of opinions and lots of notes from people I trust, but not being beholden to anyone's opinion, is I really wanted it to be illustrated with crayon. And I think it turns out to be especially pretty, even with the way they printed it, because the texture of the ink after using the crayon even feels like crayon in the book. And I tried really hard to make it easy on myself by creating a digital crayon in Photoshop and failed to get the look that I wanted. So what I actually ended up doing was creating basically 3 different coloring books for myself, a background, midground, and foreground, coloring it with actual crayons. I had all my little crayons lined up in shot glasses for the colors that corresponded to the various characters, and sat at my kitchen table and colored it all with crayon, scanned it back in, layered it back up in Photoshop, and it was an awful lot of work, but I think it's totally worth it for how nicely the result turned out. And as most kids or adults even will do, they tend to color in their own books anyway. And so I actually, in the hardcover version, there's a whole blank page with a little Este libro belongs to Lucha Libre legend, so that you can choose your own Lucha Libre name and draw your own luchador, luchadora.
Oh, that's really cool. So it's almost interactive.
It's a little interactive.
Wow. And so are you self-published on this?
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about that process too.
Yeah, it continues to be a large learning curve, but I have several friends who are published through a variety of publishers, and they get about 10% of the net, which, as you know, the net is already much smaller than the gross because there are a lot of expenses, particularly with publishing companies when you add in administrative fees and marketing fees and keeping the lights on. And so I decided to sort of delve into a self-publishing option to try to both have full control over the book. Like I did pitch it to some publishers, but a lot of people wanted it to be either in Spanish or in English. And the fact that it's in Spanglish is maybe the most important element of it to me, so I didn't want to lose that. So I tried the Amazon route. This is good information for anybody else who's on this journey. And Amazon does a crap job with picture books, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of proofs, and every proof looked different in the color was different. Some of them were cut differently, where they would bind the center and smush everybody's faces, or cut off the edges and cut off words in the book. And so even though I started with an Amazon self-publishing route, and I've had some friends who have, prose mystery books or saucy love stories that are published through Amazon and do very well. For picture books, they are not well suited for that. So I ended up looking at a variety of different printers and trying to find an option to print them inexpensively enough that I could afford to wholesale them and at least break even. I'm not really honestly sure if at the end of the day I'm currently making more than 10% anyway, but now I have the relationships with printers and sellers and uh, the knowledge of the process and the layout, and I don't answer to anybody, which is really nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get to some of your more adult work, not to say you do adult work, before we get to some of your more general work, you wrote for Be Cool ScoobyDoo for is that the Cartoon Network?
Yeah.
Now that's pretty cool. How did that come about?
Well, that's one of my favorites, and ultimately that was sort of a, friend of a friend of a friend through my Second City family. And as you know, I'm sure this is also true for a lot of people. You can send out a million emails, letters, etc., but almost all of my jobs have ended up coming from people I've worked with in the past, or you know, uh, gone to space with on the Second City stage or similar. So it was just somebody was looking for Be Cool writers, and some of my Second City family members knew that I am an insane animation enthusiast and connected us, and so that ended up being super fun.
Great. Do you have aspirations to work for the Muppets for Jim Henson?
I did actually work for Jim Henson as an assistant for when Christine Belson was the VP of Pictures, and it was the same year, I'm struggling, it was either 99 or 2000, but it was the same year they bought the Charlie Chaplin studios at Sunset and La Brea. And it was actually, I had been rejected from a couple of jobs in previous years, and it ended up being perfect timing. Because of that big party, I got to meet Kermit the Frog and Gonzo and Sweetums and Pepe. We had this huge party. We raised the Kermit Charlie Chaplin statue, and we all sang Mana in the street. I got to work for Brian Henson. I got to work with Ed Eith, who's a production designer. You might know his work also from Flight of the Navigator. Just
Cool.
lots of, just like, I really lucked into a really cool time at Henson. And I would definitely love to work with them again. There have been many, many corporate rearranging, restructuring, Disney-ing moments there. But I continue to be friends with a lot of Henson-y people, and really enthusiastic about working with them again when we come to the right moment or the right project that is suited to my particular weirdness.
Libby, you have just fulfilled like all my childhood dreams right there. That is so amazing. Okay, so
Meeting the Kermit the Frog and Gonzo were like huge moments in my life.
oh my word, that is so cool. Okay, this has nothing to do with the Muppets, but just a little bit of it made me laugh when I saw it on your IMDb. Sex sent me to the ER and I still didn't know I was pregnant. I remember auditioning for those shows. Well, the I didn't know I was pregnant, not the I still didn't know. What was it like working on those? Because those stories were always wild.
Yeah. Did you do any episodes?
I had friends who were on those. I did not, unfortunately, make it on there. I did make it on 1,000 Ways to Die, which is a similar vein.
Oh, fun. Yeah, I like to talk about this, but I try not to, disillusion too many people by bursting the Hollywood bubble. But
Spoiler alert, don't listen, guys, if you like this. Right here, spoiler alert.
But a lot of inventiveness went into those shows, into those episodes. There are a few things that happen the way they say they happened, but it's just like if you play the game telephone or you hear a story from your grandparents. They are heavily embellished for fun and television. But very fun to work on. I was the supervising writer on many episodes and spent an excessive amount of time in my office trying to come up with synonyms for penis, synonyms for, other ways to say oral sex, other ways to say, to allude to the male nipple, that was one of the ones where I actually polled my, group of comedy friends and said, everybody tell me your various words for male nipple. We got like chest pepperoni and joy buzzers and
Oh boy.
because the show, isn't meant to be, although it is on the Learning Channel and it is meant to teach a lesson, which I think is pretty funny, but the camp of it is really important and was really fun for me.
Cool. Geez, you're just like like when I categorize this interview on the website, it's going to be all of the above. So you're also a podcaster.
Yeah, I have. I also have an interview podcast. I've sort of let my podcast go a little bit by the wayside, and I have to apologize to my listeners for that. Occupassionate is my primary podcast where I interview people who are passionate about their occupations. And that one came about and will continue as soon as I sort of get my act back together. Because I feel like, especially when I was really little, and even more so for our parents' generations, they say you can be a nurse or a firefighter or, a teacher. They don't give you career options like being a puppeteer or being a perfume scent creator or being a garbage man even. And all of those many, many different jobs have a wide variety of pros and cons. Like, for instance, I have coming up an interview with a garbage collector who loves their job. It's a job that is for them and it's not for me, but they make good money. They have regular hours. They leave their work at work. They don't take it with them like I definitely do every day. Or like the rabbi I interviewed or the train man I interviewed. Those are some of my favorites. It's just, it's so interesting to really know what the pros and the cons of the job are, because I think that, and even with Luchadoremice, tying it back to my book, I like to say, busca tus sueños, seek your dreams instead of follow them, because I feel like people's dreams are sort of out there and available and perfectly suited to them, and they just need to get all the information to know where they beautifully fit.
So I'd be curious because I know your primary focus is writing, and of course, we're still in the middle of this never-ending pandemic. How has it affected your writing career? I mean, obviously you can work from home, but I mean,
Yeah,
networking and stuff like
well,
that.
that luckily for me, because I'm in animation, which there are a lot of things that I really love about animation. Speaking of a beautiful fit, I mentioned the limitlessness of the worlds, but also I personally do not like being on set. There, occasionally if there's a short film that I'm producing and directing and we can get it done in a day, it's very fun. But generally, like, I've worked, as a PA and a AD and some other random runner around jobs, and I just feel like it's incredibly tedious. But with animation, another reason it's a really good fit for me is because everybody can go sit at their own desk and do their bit of the job, and then we can all convene for a meeting where we laugh at how hilarious the work they did just was, or enjoy a table read. And actually, because animation can be done individually and lots of people can work from home, a lot of my projects are still going. So I have a new one that's launching with Hyper Hippo called The Great Adventure, which is sort of a fun mini episode series between an adventure capitalist and an adventure communist, and a Ms. Independent, who's the kind of undecided voter, and these two dorks, ideologues, trying to one-up one another to get Indy to be swayed to their ideology. And we just had an animation meeting right before I joined you for this podcast, and we get to have a table read tomorrow via Google Hangouts, I think. And table reads are my
That's
very
very timely.
yeah. Well, I think that was their plan for this particular launch moment. So
And where's that going to be?
it's basically a social media blitz, I think. So it will have its own designated YouTube channel, but the mini-sodes, I think, are meant to be launched on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know all the things that everybody's using, because I can
That is very different, planning to launch something on social media that's scripted and animated like that. I don't know if I've heard of anything like that really, besides individual artists like, like Simon's Cat or something like that put their cartoons on those. To have like a a whole production with cast and, animation seems really unique. Have you seen more of this for social media, short form video production, like full scale production happening? It's like kind of the first thing I've ever seen like that, I guess, where it's a whole team developing for a like TikTok kind of platform.
Yeah, I feel like, there's so much technology available, and frankly, I'm always trying to navigate it myself, that you already see all these companies launching their own streaming platforms. And then, of course, there's Quibi. Is it called Quibi? That's like short content that's intended for social media. And because it's all kind of experimental, I think everybody's just, taking their inspiration and then hanging out with a marketing team and trying to see how those pieces fit together for best results. So I haven't seen this specific thing before, but I know that our inspiration, or Hyper Hippo's inspiration, in certainly in bringing myself and my co-story editor Tim Hunter in to sort of develop and create this project with them, was to draw on the existing worlds of their games, Adventure Capitalist and Adventure Communist, and from their marketing team's perspective, try to grab people's eyes as they're scrolling their feeds, which I feel like I'm a particularly petulant consumer, or non-consumer rather. Like, if I feel like I'm being targeted by marketing, then I'm extra mad at your company and ignore it with full force. But I think it's just the combination, like I said, of the available technology and the world they created, and we're still sort of massaging into a best fit, but we'll have 30 mini episodes out before the end of 2020, and then fingers crossed we sort of learn all the pros and cons of that and get to make 30 more episodes in 2021.
That is awesome. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that there's still work out there. You go, Libby. That's awesome. Lead the
Yeah.
way. But animation's a great place to be right now, honestly, because it's kind of like really the only thing people can do. So
Yeah, I'm incredibly fortunate. I have a lot of friends in animation. I mean, it's my world, so it's incredibly lucky that we all still have projects moving along, and it's a great time. I mean, I always feel this when I don't have work, pandemic or not pandemic. Sometimes my thing ended and I'm out of work. It's a great time to go nuts on your own projects. It's a great time to take your pitch property and make a book, or make a song, or make a web series at home, or any of those things.
Well, you're obviously proof that it can actually turn into something real, so that's great. Yeah, you're an inspiration.
Well, thank you so much. It's certainly not easy, but it's especially nice to be able to hold it in your hand and flip the pages and share it with people.
So, Libby, if people want to find you online or find Luchadoremice online, where can they go?
So they can find Luchadoremice at Luchadoremice on Instagram or Facebook, or luchadoremice.com to purchase. In fact, if you do a luchadoremice.com/neighbors, there's a 20% discount, which actually just amounts to me paying your taxes and shipping for you, and I will sign a copy and send it to you for the same rate as the Amazon Prime will send it to you without my signature. So if my signature is interesting to you, I would love to draw you something or autograph for you and send it to you myself if you purchase it through the website directly.
Very cool. And how can they find you personally?
And to find me, I'm at sneakyvarmint.com, VARMINT. I think a lot of people leave the letter N out, but I'm very easy to find if it's spelled correctly. And then across all the usual social media platforms. Definitely Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Wonderful. All
Thank
right.
you so much for coming on the show, Libby.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, good luck with the book and all your other projects, and we'll see you online.
Thank you so much.